What's up, Steelers fans? Welcome back to Around the Burgh. We're here with our Week 12 preview of the Steelers road match against the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm Mitchell Wolf, and I'm here with my co-host Shane Kubis. Shane, how you doing tonight?
Oh, well, just getting ready for Thanksgiving tomorrow because we're recording this the day before, so just getting ready for that. But definitely still has my eye on this week coming up with the Steelers. So
Yep, night before Thanksgiving, Blackout Tuesday, as it's known in some places. But we're here, sober. At least I am, making some
yeah,
content.
I'm waiting for now, but
There
we'll,
you
we'll
go.
see how
There you
the
go.
see how the day goes on.
There
So
you go. All right. Well, we'll dive right into the news and notes. I think the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about was in Tomlin's press conferences after the game and this week, he acknowledged that there was some coaching mistakes against the Chargers game, mostly on the defense, just about how their game plan didn't put the defense in a position to win. And I would argue that the injuries put them in a position where it was impossible to win. I'm not too mad about it, but I'm glad that he acknowledged at least there were some times where they could have changed things. I think he mostly talked about allowing Herbert to scramble.
yeah, and that's the one thing that the injuries are definitely the reason why we struggled as much as we did. We all know
Mm-hmm.
that, but there is a point where it's like you got to at least stop him from doing that because
Mm-hmm.
you're giving him free yards, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I understand like some of the throws he was making kind of made it feel like we were giving him free yards that way too, but at least with that he has to actually make the throw instead of just take off. Like I'd much rather, as good of a player as he is as a thrower, I'd rather him not have the ability just to go get 10 yards on a scramble every time. So that was
100%.
something I was worried about. Like not as much going in, but as the game progressed, I'm like, I don't know if we can stop them on these like third and mediums because he's just going to take off and run. And
Yeah.
that's what happened. So.
Yeah, absolutely. The good news is though he did indicate that TJ Minka and Hayden should probably all be back this week, so that's great because this is a really important game for the Steelers from a divisional standpoint, and just to get the defense back to a point of competence.
Yeah, definitely. If we weren't going to have all of them back for this game, I'd definitely be much more worried especially on the defensive side of the ball. But having them all back, hopefully, should kind of make us look a lot more like we normally have been looking. So.
Yeah, it was funny, like looking at the stats for this game. I think I would be interested to see because I looked at them last time, but I just don't remember off the top of my head. But it'd be interesting to see how much they, where the Steelers rank in terms of team stats, just based on kind of this one game and how much they skewed them. Because I know the Steelers fell in a lot of categories just because of one game where they were missing, most of their best players on defense.
Oh yeah, especially from a passing yards allowed standpoint, even a rushing yards. I mean, we weren't the best rushing defense by any means, but definitely gave up a lot of yards just from Herbert, let alone Eckler and everything. So
yeah, and then on the injury / COVID front, it's last week Steelers missing their starting quarterback. This week they're missing the number one wide receiver. It's Ray McLeod. So I really don't know what the offense is going to do without him.
I mean, it's funny because I still love the fact that he's been able to make such an impact this year on offense too, because that was the least I didn't expect anything from him as a receiver or anything. I mean, maybe obviously some gadget plays and stuff like that. But he's actually really done a great job. And you mentioned this a lot early in the season, as a blocker, honestly too.
They'll use they'll use him like the Buccaneers use Chris Godwin, or how the Rams used Robert Woods as this insert blocker where they'll run duo to him and he'll fit inside the tackle and the tight end and go blow up a linebacker. I'm just like, this dude's 5'9", 180. What is happening?
He's out of his mind. It's crazy. So
it's really funny.
That returner mentality I'm sure helps a lot, but still, it's man, jeez, yes, he's been awesome.
That's the more interesting absence, because he is obviously the starting returner in both positions, and if he's out, it'll be interesting to see where the Steelers go. I think they're talked about, activating Anthony McFarland finally, because they use him as kick returner. Obviously, Deontay Johnson has some good plays as punt returner.
Yeah, especially.
I think they've talked about using Steven Sims there because he has a good amount of experience there as well. So that'll be interesting to see what they do there. And then the other big one is it seems like Eric Ibron might be done for the year.
Yeah, which after his first real super impactful game is kind of unfortunate for sure.
Yeah, because they said that he'll be. I think they basically said he'll be out because they're checking out his knee, and he posted a picture of him in the locker room where all the teammates and he had the heartbreaking emoji and all the guys everybody on the team was commented we got you, bro, stay strong, all that stuff. So we kind of get on Eric Ebron because he's not a very good blocker. He didn't really make an impact in this offense for most of the year, but it seems like the team does really like him, and he has a good relationship with a lot of the players. So it is just always disappointing to see a player, especially a veteran, kind of get knocked out for the season at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right. So that was pretty quick news and notes. So we'll just dive right into the game preview, unless Shane wants to delve into any Thanksgiving debates that have been overdone on Twitter.
Listen, all I'm going to say is that I understand that people don't like turkey a lot of the time, and that's fine. I'm not the biggest turkey fan by any means, but I think you can do a good job with it if you really care enough. But most people just like, oh, we just throw a turkey in the oven, we're good. It's like, that's not.
I think generally, like turkey is just generally mid.
Yeah, it's not a great, like, it's just not a great food.
And like an average of most other meats is better, could be better, is like mostly better than the best turkey, you know?
Right.
Like no matter what you do to the turkey, like there's gonna be like an average, like you can make like an average chicken that's better than a elite turkey.
Exactly. So, that's the problem with it.
That's
it just feeds a lot of people, you know?
That's the thing.
It's a big ass bird that you just throw in the oven and you're good. Like you just feed a ton of people. That's what it is. So.
Right. And that's our segment of meat talk.
Right, for now at least, yeah.
So since week 3, when the Bengals beat the Steelers, they've been kind of up and down. So they've had some like nice wins. They beat the Ravens pretty handily on the road, but then they lost 2 straight to the Jets and the Browns. And then they had a bye week, and then they beat the Raiders on the road after the bye. So, you know, they're playing pretty well. They're just doing a lot of stuff. They're, you know, pretty consistent all around as an offense and defense. They're 9th in scoring defense and offense. Their offense is generally above average to good, and their defense is kind of the same. So it's not the best time for this matchup for the Steelers.
No, it's just like this year, especially like you said, they've been pretty consistent for the most part as far as they have a good offense and a good defense, but how good can their offense or defense be on any given game is kind of up for to debate, especially. Mm-hmm. And I think that, and we have a lot of, you know, Bengals people with ATB. I think they've said a lot about it too. I do feel like even though it's been his most successful year, I think that you can tell that this team could be better than it is if they had a different head coach than Zach Taylor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. Like he's seeing them be like mad about it. And I'm like, you guys are still like, this is like the best Bengals season
in
quite some time. Like I'd be pretty happy with this, but obviously I'm not watching all the games, so people kind of could say the same thing about Steelers fans and Mike Tomlin. But some of the interesting stats I found, the Bengals actually have a less efficient running offense than Steelers based on expected points. So I think both of their running games have negative expected points on the season, but the Steelers actually have fewer negative points than the Bengals, which was pretty surprising to me, given the fact that even though their offensive line is kind of considered narratively to be bad, you know, they've been playing decently well, and they obviously have a pretty good running back in Joe Mixon.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because weirdly enough, I think this line has been a better pass blocking unit than a run blocking unit. Yeah. So what we expected coming into the year because of how poor they were in pass protection at times last year, especially in the interior. Like that's where they really struggled a lot. Yeah. And the fact that even with Mixon, they're still not a great running offense is definitely indicative of the offensive line. And the same thing could be said about the Steelers. I mean, that's really the biggest issue for both of these teams as far as running game goes, is that for sure.
Right. And then the other thing, the Steelers are better on third down by about 2 percentage points.
Yeah.
But the Bengals are much better in the red zone. The Bengals are converting the red zone opportunities almost 70% of the time, whereas Steelers are only converting at 58%. So, which, you know, we talked about those issues with Canada this past week. And there's been kind of that debate again where it's like, oh, let Ben call the plays. Like, let him just do no huddle. And it's like, we tried that. It doesn't work. It works for a little bit. It doesn't work long term.
I think there's credence to the idea of between the 20s, Canada can handle the play calling very well. Like I feel like we do a pretty generally good job, especially in some of the games recently, moving the ball in between the 20s. Once we get into the red zone, I do think there could be more, especially if it continues to struggle, you know, this week and moving forward. You could see, or I'd want to see more of maybe Ben taking control in that area of the field, because he at least can then try to get them into better situations than just throwing the ball 3 times or anything like that. Like I would think that he could maybe do a little bit more in the red zone than Cannon has done with his play calling, just based on what we've seen.
It is funny though, because when Ben calls plays, they are all passes.
Right. And like, that's the thing that sucks about it too, is like, I think that he understands, though, at this point a little bit more. Like, he has this 230-pound running back that he can use in the red zone. And even if we don't run the ball that much more, I think maybe we get him more involved as a pass catcher in the red zone, which, honestly, I mean, especially depending on the type of pass play, it won't be much different than giving him the ball in the run game and maybe getting him in some space opposed to having to run into a brick wall every play. So
yeah, I'm not sure we're going to see that Chase Claypool sweep on the goal line anymore. That might be out of the book.
I sure hope so. I mean, I wish Tom would just kind of go up playbook, so you can't take it out of his playbook. But whatever, But
we'll exactly. On defense, it's actually interesting. The Steelers and Bengals blitz about the same rate, but the Bengals are getting more pressure. I would imagine it's because they have two very good defensive ends. Steelers obviously TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith has been good. He's been improving over the last few weeks, but he's obviously been kind of in and out of the lineup. So, that consistency has allowed them to be a more consistent pressure team, which is concerning given the Steelers' issues on the offensive line, even though they have been better in pass protection as of late.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the fact that they do better blitz doesn't really surprise me that much just from that. Like you said, I think they're more consistent up front. Like we have a lot more pure talent, I think, especially when you factor in Watt and even Hayward, obviously, too. But up front, I think they're just more balanced and consistent at doing that type of thing.
Right.
For sure.
Right. The good news is that the Bengals are 27th in sack percentage on offense, which is about 8%, and the Steelers are 4th in sack percentage on defense at about 7.7%. So, 8% of plays. This is going to be tough math to do, but that's pretty good for the Steelers if they can kind of take advantage of the offensive line that is, I would say, weak on the right side.
Yeah,
which is good for guys like TJ Watt and Cam Hayward.
For sure. I think that's where we have to attack, especially even trying to overload that side occasionally too with some blitzes. Like, I just don't think that they're going to hold up on that side of the field. And that can really kind of limit, obviously trying to get Burrow to move left opposed to moving right would be great too. Then, of course, for that
because Jonah Williams has been playing well now that he's finally healthy on the left side.
Which is,
but the right side, they've had some revolving doors at right tackle and right guard, so that's part of the issue. And Riley Reef is playing right tackle; he's solid, but a guy like TJ Watt should be able to own him.
Yeah, Reef has been able to replace the absolute black hole.
It's not Bobby Hart,
right? But he's still a replacement level offensive line.
For sure.
He's not going to handle these elite edge rushers that they might face. So
and then the Steelers defense is better in the red zone and on third downs. They're 4th in red zone at 48.5%, and the Bengals are 13th with 54.5%, and the Steelers are 7th in third down percent at 36.6%, and the Bengals are 13th again at 39.2%. So they went back and forth on offense with the conversion statistics, but the Steelers are better in those clutch situations, which, especially now that they're getting back so many key players, those numbers should continue to improve because they probably went down a little bit after last week's debacle.
Yeah, especially the third down percentage, because early in that game, there's no stopping the Chargers on third.
Yeah, and I think they converted every opportunity in the red zone too. So
insane. Yeah, it was just. Honestly, that's not going to happen every week, even if we did have guys missing. So having everybody back, I think honestly, these teams, especially looking at last game too, this isn't going to be this high-scoring, high-flying event. I don't see that happening just because the Bengals' offense is very good whenever Burrow can be kept clean and find his receivers. But if that's not the case, and it hasn't been the case super often this year, it really relies on whether Chase can make a 60-yard catch or not. Whether they score 20-plus points. And obviously that's not going to happen every game, especially if we hopefully don't leave James Pierre in one-on-one coverage with him again. But whatever. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how these teams attack each defense and offense, because from our perspective, we're just limited from what we can do by, unless Ben plays more like he did last week. And with Bengals, they just don't have the consistency up front like we don't either.
Yeah, hopefully they kind of give Ben the nice work week of days off. They're keep giving him days off. Comes in, maybe practices one day, give him the rest of the week off, have him go home, eat a ton of turkey. He just naps on Friday, then comes in. All right, honestly, we're gonna play today.
They just need to give him a stone plane, maybe too. I don't know, something like that. Whatever works, that might be worth it. It's just whatever you need to do to make him play mostly as good as he did last week, and we should be in good shape on offense.
Yeah, I should have looked at the tweet or saved it, but there's some tweet about how I think this is the longest streak of games that he's gone without throwing an interception. Not passing attempts yet, but because I think he's at 179 passing attempts, and I feel like his longest streak of passes is it's over 200, because I think it was at that. Something. Yeah, because it was in that time, and I think in 2014 where he had those back-to-back 6-touchdown games in that area where he was just absolutely dealing.
It was crazy. Yeah. But he's done the one thing I will say, he hasn't been super productive, obviously, for the most part, as our offense just hasn't been. But other than a couple games where obviously he got away with some throws occasionally in between that time, but he hasn't made any blatant stupid stuff for the past few weeks, which has been great to see. So.
Yeah. Here's the kind of I would say the weirdest stat, just based on the history of these teams. The Bengals have the fewest penalties and fewest penalty yards in the NFL, which is, given their history of players, is pretty surprising to me.
This is just a whole new like style of Bengals team though too,
Yeah.
from what we've experienced in the past. I mean, like you said, they're much more methodical, they're much more disciplined, and that's the one thing I'll say is that from a discipline standpoint, the coaching staff seems to be taking care of that for the most part. So that's one thing you can give them credit for, but it still feels like, and this is just obviously looking at some of the losses they've had, and like you can tell I don't think they're quite ready to be that consistent performing team like they would need to be if they want to continue the hot streak they've been on. So,
and even like some of their losses, like two of their losses are by field goal, or I think even 3 of their losses are by field goals. Yeah, because
I know lost, at least
because they lost. Yeah, they lost 3 games by 3 points or 3 points each, because they lost the Bears when Burrow kind of had that collapse with all those interceptions. Then they had that weird overtime game with the Packers where like nobody could miss it, nobody could get a kick, and then they've lost the Jets in a close game, and then the next week the Browns blew them out. But yeah, I mean, so they've had a bunch of close losses, but we'll get into some matchup stuff here. So this was interesting because I thought of this and then I looked at the stats and didn't actually bear it out. But given how successful Justin Herbert was last week as a runner, I'm concerned about the Bengals doing similar stuff with him. But when I looked at the scramble stats, but Joe Burrow is not really used that much as a runner. There's very few designed runs. I think he's only had like 11 scrambles on the year, and he's actually fumbled once in each of the last 3 games. So especially as the weather gets colder, I think I just looked it up. It's going to be in the mid 30s, possibly some rain in Cincinnati on Sunday. So, for a guy with quote unquote small hands, this could be a good opportunity for like guys like TJ and Alex Highsmith to get some fumbles.
Yeah, and like I think Burrow's like he's a good enough athlete where I'd be concerned about him as a runner, especially if we didn't have the defense back to mostly full strength. But ever since obviously his knee injury and just he is obviously a pocket passer. He's not a guy that's just going to try to make a ton of plays outside of the pocket unless he has to. I'm not really worried about him as a runner. I think if we give him wide open lanes like we gave Herbert, he could definitely take advantage of those.
Yeah.
But I'm not really worried about them actually attempting to use him as a runner in the run game at all.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that I thought was interesting was that the Steelers basically under no circumstance should be blitzing like Joe Burrow, because when I get up these numbers, they're absolutely insane. So obviously Joe Burrow is affected a lot by pressure. So his passing grade, according to PFF, so when he's kept clean, his passing grade is 90.8.
Yeah, that's
and when he's under pressure, it drops to 53.0. So major drop. He has the same amount of turnover worthy plays, but his big time throws drops from 12 to 5. That's it's just that's where he's really struggling. His completion percentage drops from 72 to 53. But the thing is that when you look at his not blitz versus blitz numbers, when he's not blitzed, his passing grade is 70.3. When he is blitzed, he's 93.1. So basically, if you blitz Joe Burrow, like he knows where it's coming from and he's going to exploit that. So the Steelers need to, this is the axiom that applies to every football game. It's like you need to find a way to get pressure with the 4. And luckily, with TJ Watt back, Cam Hayward there, Alex Highsmith's playing well, and against a relatively suspect offensive line, the Steelers should be able to find a way to get pressure with 4. But if they blitz, that's going to be very problematic, I would say.
Yeah, and obviously I hope that they keep that in mind and they understand that going into this week, because realistically, the way that Burrow has played, because I've gotten a chance to watch a couple Bengals games this year just because of just needing something to watch, or just they happened to be on the teams I can watch in the area. I've noticed that he, like you said, he knows exactly pre-snap where the blitz is coming from almost every time. And he is in sync with these receivers and they know where to be. And anytime you have a quarterback that's playing like that and his receivers are synced up with him, blitzing them is never a good idea unless it's one of those, disguised blitzes that you do get him on, which even that, it's not really worth it. I think we can get enough pressure on him without doing that, and being able to drop 5, 6, 7 guys on some plays and make him have to hold the football before he can make a decision.
Yeah.
That's our best bet to come away with
because he can move around in the pocket and make plays, on the move, but he's not like the greatest. He's not like a super incredible athlete like Herbert that's going to be able to get away from guys like TJ or Alex. So the one play though that I've seen, I think they said that the Panthers ran a variation of it. Obviously they have Joe Brady.
Yeah.
And it's this play they ran at LSU where basically they kind of run a fake QB draw, but then as he's running forward, he throws this quick like slant that's going right across the middle of the field, and they run it for like touchdowns a bunch, and it was really cool looking play. So something to look out for in this game. You mentioned a little bit about how Joe Burrow's chemistry with these wide receivers, and frankly, these receivers do scare me, especially with how. I mean, granted, again, Hayden will be back, but Joe Hayden, Cam Sutton, and James Pierre versus Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase is not the best matchup for the Steelers, I would say.
No, and I think especially having Minka back is going to be really important because it allows us to try to take one of those guys away. I am worried, especially about Tyler Boyd. I think that he could have a big game against us in the slot just because we're going to have to focus so much attention on Chase just to make sure he doesn't get any of those big plays that really ignite this offense when they happen. And if we can keep him in check too in the slot, I'm not as worried about Higgins. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's going to be able to elevate the offense by himself.
That's where I'd put Pierre.
Exactly.
I would make sure Pierre's on Higgins because Higgins just doesn't have that. I mean, and even Chase isn't that it's weird because he just doesn't have that incredible straight line speed. He just finds ways to get open deep. But Higgins is not that. Higgins is more of the jump ball vertical.
He's not super sudden, right?
No, so exactly. That's a great way to describe it.
He's not. I'm not worried about Pierre getting dusted off the line of scrimmage. Yeah. That's what I'm worried about. Chase even more so, just because again he does have good speed once he gets going. I just don't think he's as explosive in like I said, straight line. Yeah. He needs a little bit of get go. Once he has that going, though, then he can run past guys.
That's where you need a guy like Hayden over there because Hayden, again, not the fastest guy, but he's experienced enough and savvy enough where he should
be able to cut off some of those routes.
Yeah, and maybe that's where you kind of float Minka over there, so Hayden can kind of play a little underneath and be a little more aggressive at trying to undercut those shorter routes, and then you Minka over the top if they do go deep, but. I definitely agree with you about Boyd. I think that's I have to imagine they're going to be playing this game in almost exclusively nickel and dime.
Yeah.
So they can double both of those guys. Maybe you leave Higgins as the 1-on-1 and Uzama and I guess Mixon. And I think the problem with that is, and this gets into my other matchup, is Mixon had a really good game against the Steelers last time.
Yeah, he did.
And if the Steelers have to stay in dime to stop this passing attack, I think they're just going to run the ball up the middle, and that's. Even when the Steelers are on base personnel, they've had trouble stopping the run.
That's the one thing that concerns me is it's one thing to allow them to kind of run the ball opposed to giving up big passing plays. I'd obviously rather them do that.
Yeah.
But if you're getting gashed in the run game and you can't get third down stops or you can't get them into third and longs, then you need to kind of decide, okay, am I willing to take a chance and leave some of these guys one-on-one so I can keep Mixon from gashing you? That's what I don't want them to have to be in a situation to decide about. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Let me see about the other. So those, I think a lot of the matchups favor the Bengals in this game. Honestly,
yeah.
Ben obviously really struggled throwing the ball in this game through a bunch of interceptions and stuff. I'd say the one matchup that I do like, we mentioned Cam Hayward and TJ Watt versus this offensive line, but the one I do like is Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson versus Eli Apple. Apple's not having the best season, as to be expected. He's been solid in some games, but I think that's the matchup Steelers need to be looking at. And Ben is obviously very locked into those receivers. He likes to get them the ball a lot, especially with Ray McLeod, wide receiver, 1 out. So I expect those guys to get a lot of targets.
And that's kind of the funny thing about this is the receiving cores on both sides have a major advantage, I think, against the DBs for the most part, especially the corner rooms. So for me, it's which team can protect their quarterback better, right? Because if Ben has time to throw and get the ball to these guys, I don't think they can cover either of them very well. If Burrow has time to find his receivers, though, we're going to be in the same boat. Yeah. That's where it's going to be about the pressure. Can our tackles hold up and our interior hold up better than theirs does? If that's the case, then I think we have a really good shot at getting the W. If we don't do that, or if we don't do it a good bit better than the other team does, we're not going to be in a good spot at the end of the game.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll get into predictions now. So the Bengals are favored by 4.5. The over-under is 45. Looking at a projected score of Bengals 25, Steelers 10, around there. And I mentioned it earlier, but frankly, the Steelers need this win.
Yeah, sure.
They're right behind the Bengals now in the AFC North. They are out of the playoff picture as of right now. They have a really tough schedule going down to the end of the season. They've still got the Chiefs, the Titans, the Ravens twice, the Browns again. I think the Vikings is technically their quote easiest game of the rest of the season.
Yeah, and lately they don't look super beatable. I mean,
yeah,
especially
exactly.
If they actually be aggressive on offense. So.
Yeah, exactly. So this is one that it's possible that they could win it. So I think they really need it, and I think that simply because they need to have it, I'm going to pick them to win 24-17. I bumped it down a little bit because of the weather. I think that this is it's like I said, it's gonna be ugly weather. I think this is the second time the teams are playing, so they kind of know each other a little better. So I think the score will be lower, but I think that Steelers offense is playing better. The defense is probably gonna be really angry after last week and how poorly they performed, so they'll be out to get quote revenge. And also this is a revenge game for when the Bengals said Steelers quit in the last game. So I think Tom's gonna have this team really motivated. I think they're gonna come out and was going to win, like I said, win this game close, but it's going to be a really physical, bruising game this week. But again, Steelers 2017. Shane, what's your prediction?
I'm going to say, when I was looking at this, the under looks promising for me.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Like, just from a betting standpoint, and also just looking at it from trying to figure out what score I think is most likely. I feel like your score is definitely. I like the 20-17. I think this could be like a field goal wins it type of game.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
like I could totally see that, and obviously that favors us in that situation if it's coming down.
I'll say this: their kicker's playing Evan McPherson. I think he's a rookie. He's playing quite well. So I'll
lately, especially like really other than a couple games, like especially like that Packers game. Nobody could kick it all.
I don't remember. Was it windy that day? I can't remember.
Something was not.
It was
right
so weird. Yeah, there was like 6 missed kicks in that game or something. Yeah,
Crosby missed like a stupid amount. Like he has every couple of years, he has one of those games.
Well, this year apparently, like he has a new holder because it's a different punter. And they're just not in sync at all. It's weird because like I think who were they playing? They were playing someone in prime time recently. Might have been the Chiefs, and there was multiple times where the kickers didn't spin the ball right, so the ball just got kicked all over the place.
Yeah, it's been
Aces out, baby. But anyways, what's your
I'm gonna say 21-17. I think that we do get a couple early touchdowns and the game's close to the end and we finish it off kind of with a touchdown and the Bengals don't manage to get back down the field and score.
So definitely I would definitely take the under here at 45 because like I said, weather's bad. It's the second time teams are playing each other in division, so they know each other really well. I think the score is only 28-17 last time or something like that. So,
I think so, yeah,
it's just a little less than that, which, in bad weather and a repeat matchup, that's kind of what you expect. But like I said, I think the Steelers need to have this one. And it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, I really hope they get it. So I'm going to predict that they will. But that'll do it for us this week. It's obviously Thanksgiving Eve. We hope everybody's a great Thanksgiving. Game is on Sunday at 1 p.m. In the meantime, Shane, let people know they can find you.
Well, you'll find me somehow begrudgingly in front of a television watching probably the Lions and Bears tomorrow, even though I don't want to. But other than that, you can find me at Shane Kubis on Twitter and find us at SteelersATB on Twitter too. I will be, again, live tweeting the game, hopefully, and I won't be as sad at the end of it as I was last time. But outside of that, it's pretty much where you can find me right now.
Yep, you can find me at Mitchell T. Wolf, WOLFE on Twitter, and make sure you are following Around the Block on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. We will be doing our live episode on all those channels after the game at 8:30.
I think it's 8:30.
That's the time we agree. Okay, so 8:30 is when we'll be going live. So it'll be when the Sunday night game starts. But just put us on your laptop or whatever while the other game starts.
Listen to us either complain or hopefully talk about how I can't believe we did it, guys. Woo!
Yeah. Either way, we'll be making it fun. So we hope you join us next time and have a great Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yep. Have a great Thanksgiving.